I stand before the Galactic Council today, my silver scales dulled with age, but my voice remains strong. They whisper, these mighty representatives of 1,000 worlds, wondering why a warrior of the once great Vexthari would champion the cause of primitives. Honored council, I begin, my translator clicking softly. You ask why humans should lead us. Let me tell you of the Day of Ashes, when I learned that technological superiority means nothing without the heart to wield it properly. The memory floods back, as vivid as the day it happened. The crystalline spires of Val Thoran burning, our capital's shield generators failing one by one. The Meridian Horde's ships darkened our skies, their techno-organic abominations consuming everything in their path. I was Commander Kazar then, leader of the Last Guard, desperately coordinating our final defense from the central spire. Our energy weapons, the pride of Vexthari engineering, barely scratched their adaptive shields. Each hour, another city fell silent. Another billion souls lost to the void. Send the civilians through the deep bunker networks, I ordered, watching our orbital platforms wink out one by one. Hold the line at all costs, but even as I gave the command, I knew it was futile. The Meridians had evolved past our defenses, as they always did. We were watching the end of our civilization. The ground shook. Through the command center's windows, I saw the western spire collapse, its molecular bonds disrupted by Meridian decay fields. Our last battlecruiser, the Pride of Ancestors, made its final transmission for the Vexthari, before ramming a Meridian mothership. The explosion briefly turned night to day. Then we picked up new signals, unknown ships dropping out of faster than light travel. My heart sank. Reinforcements for the Meridians, no doubt. But the energy signatures were different, primitive, inefficient. Human warships. We'd heard of them, of course. A young species, barely space-faring by our standards. They still used combustion weapons and projectile technology. Their ships were ungainly, their methods crude. And yet, their kinetic weapons tore through the Meridian ships like they were made of paper. Nuclear warheads technology we'd abandoned millennia ago disrupted the Horde's adaptive shielding. Their targeting systems were simple enough to avoid the Meridian's electronic warfare. Ground forces incoming, my lieutenant reported, disbelief in his voice. I watched, stunned, as human dropships screamed through the atmosphere. Their soldiers deployed on foot, carrying primitive projectile weapons. The Meridians had adapted to energy weapons, to plasma, to quantum disruption fields, but they had no defense against bullets, against explosives, against the simple, brutal efficiency of kinetic force. The building shook again. This time the ceiling came down. I remember the crushing weight, the taste of blood, the certainty that I would die in the rubble of everything I'd sworn to protect. Then hands cleared the debris. Human hands. I looked up into the faceplate of a human combat suit, far less sophisticated than our battle armor. The human's voice crackled through external speakers. Hang on, buddy. We're getting you out of here. I tried to explain who I was, that they should save someone more important. The human cut me off. Everyone's important. That's why we came. They saved us. Not just me, but my entire species. They asked for nothing in return. No technology, no resources, no political favors. They simply returned to their space once they'd driven the Meridians back, leaving only communication channels and offers of friendship. I look at the council now, see the dismissal in some of their eyes. Yes, humans are primitive. Yes, they're chaotic, divided, sometimes violent, but they possess something far more valuable than technological advancement. They have heart. I am Kazar of the Vexthari, and I stand before you today because a primitive species taught me that true civilization isn't measured by the sophistication of its weapons, but by its willingness to help others without expecting reward. The humans should lead because they haven't forgotten what so many of us have. That power means nothing without compassion to guide it. And this is only the beginning of what they could teach us. The human medical ship Mercy was my first glimpse into what made their species truly unique. I woke in their medical bay, surrounded by equipment that any Vexthari child could have improved upon, watching their doctors save lives through what seemed like brute force and determination rather than technological finesse. Your methods are. Primitive, I told the human doctor as she checked my wounds. I meant it as an insult, but she just laughed. They work, though, she said, adjusting what appeared to be a simple fluid drip. Sometimes the old ways are the best ways. It wasn't until I could walk again that I realized the most shocking thing about the medical bay they were treating Meridian wounded alongside our own. I found their captain, a woman named London, and demanded an explanation. "They're injured," she said, as if that explained everything. "We don't leave anyone behind." "But they're the enemy," I insisted. "They tried to exterminate us." Captain London's expression softened. "The soldiers following orders aren't always the ones making them. Besides, how can we expect peace if we don't show mercy?" I thought she was naive then. I know better now. The humans had converted their cargo holds into refugee centers, housing thousands of my people. Their food synthesizers laughably basic compared to ours worked around the clock to provide adequate nutrition. When they broke down, the humans shared their own rations without hesitation. Why, I asked a human engineer as he helped repair our damaged environmental suits. "Why help us? What do you want in return?" He looked confused. "Return? We came because you needed help. That's all there is to it." I didn't believe him. Nobody did. We kept waiting for the other graviton to drop, for the humans to present their demands. They never did. Instead, they offered us shelter on their colonies until we could rebuild. They shared their resources, their knowledge as limited as it was, and asked only for friendship in return. When I first visited Earth, I expected to find a unified utopia. How else could a species be so altruistic? Instead, I found chaos. Nations competing with nations. Different political systems, religions, cultures all clashing and cooperating in equal measure. Humans argued constantly about everything from governance to entertainment. "How do you function like this?" I asked my guide, Sarah, as we watched a heated political debate in their United Nations. "How do you achieve anything with so much division?" She smiled. "We function because of it, not despite it. All these different viewpoints, they force us to consider every angle, to find compromises, to grow. Unity through diversity, you know." I didn't know. The Vexthari had long since evolved past such inefficient systems. We had unified our culture, streamlined our governance, eliminated the chaos of competing ideologies. We had achieved perfection. And yet, faced with extinction, all our perfection had meant nothing. While we died in elegant harmony, these chaotic humans had rushed to our aid, their very differences making them adaptable enough to fight an enemy we couldn't defeat. The turning point in my understanding came during a terrorist attack on their lunar colony. A radical group had smuggled bombs into the main dome. As warnings blared and people rushed to emergency shelters, I watched humans running toward the danger. Politicians and janitors, wealthy tourists and maintenance workers, all of them working together to save lives. They didn't stop to check species or citizenship status. They didn't calculate cost-benefit ratios. They simply helped because they could, because they believed they should. That was when I knew my new purpose. The galaxy needed this. Needed them. Not for their technology, which was centuries behind most advanced races. Not for their military might, which was significant but not overwhelming. No, the galaxy needed their heart, their spirit, their fundamental, unshakable belief that helping others was its own reward. I stand before the council now, preparing to share more of what I learned. Some of you see humans as primitive, as dangerous, as chaotic. You're not wrong, but you're missing what makes them special. They're primitive enough to still feel wonder at the universe. They're dangerous enough to fight for what's right. They're chaotic enough to find solutions no logical species would consider. And most importantly, they're imperfect enough to understand those who struggle, to empathize with those who suffer, to never forget what it means to need help. The real question isn't whether humans should lead the galaxy. The real question is, what will we lose if we don't let them? My initial attempts to advocate for humanity were met with derision. The Galactic Council chambers echoed with laughter when I first suggested giving humans a leadership role in interstellar affairs. They still use fossil fuels on some of their colonies, sneered the ZXTL representative. their crystalline form shimmering with amusement. Perhaps we should put children in charge of our scientific institutions as well. Their ships are powered by nuclear fission, added the Ulthari delegate. They haven't even mastered basic quantum folding. I stood my ground. They saved my civilization when all of you stood by and watched. The Meridian threat was contained. The ZXTL representative waved a crystalline appendage dismissively. The situation was being monitored. My translator crackled with the intensity of my response. Billions of my people died while you monitored the situation. But I was speaking to empty hearts. The advanced races of the galaxy had grown so comfortable in their superiority that they'd forgotten what it meant to struggle, to fight, to care. Then came the Proxima mining colony disaster. The quantum singularity containment failed at the colony's core. 3 million souls miners and their families from dozens of species faced imminent death. The colony's distress calls echoed across every emergency frequency. The advanced races debated proper procedures. They calculated acceptable losses. They formed committees to discuss potential responses. The humans just went. I was on Earth when the call came in. Within 20 minutes, every available human ship was breaking orbit. They didn't have the most advanced rescue equipment. They didn't have quantum tunneling technology or temporal stasis fields. They had sturdy ships, basic environmental suits, and unshakable determination. I went with them, watched their primitive ships punch through the quantum storms surrounding the failing colony, watched their engineers jury-rig solutions with technology centuries behind the colony's systems, watched their medics treat plasma burns with synthesized skin patches and old-fashioned bandages. They saved everyone. Every single person. The vid feeds of human rescue workers carrying children of various species to safety went viral across the galaxy. Slowly, attitudes began to shift. The Tellarites were the first to join me in supporting humanity. They remembered how humans had helped them during their great drought, asking nothing in return. The Yith came next, moved by human efforts to preserve their ancient artifacts during the Cascade War. More stories emerged. Small acts of human kindness that had gone unnoticed by the greater galactic community. A human trade ship diverting its course to answer a distress call. Human scientists freely sharing medical discoveries that other races would have held for profit. Human diplomats mediating conflicts simply because someone had to do something. They're dangerous, the Ulthari delegate warned during one session. Their chaos could destabilize millennia of carefully maintained order. Perhaps, replied the Tellarite representative, our order needs some destabilization. He was right. Since humanity's emergence onto the galactic stage, interspecies cooperation had risen dramatically. Trade disputes had dropped. Joint scientific ventures had multiplied. The humans' insistence on helping others had proven infectious. Their imperfection was their strength. They hadn't forgotten what it meant to fall, to fail, to need help getting back up. While the rest of us had evolved past our weaknesses, they had learned to turn theirs into tools. Their technology was primitive? That meant they had to be creative. Their society was chaotic? That meant they could adapt to anything. Their emotions were volatile? That meant they cared deeply, passionately, unshakably. Standing before the council now, I see more supportive faces than I used to. Species who once laughed at humanity now trade with them regularly. Races that once dismissed them as primitives now seek their counsel in crises. The resistance to human leadership is crumbling, not because they conquered it, but because they did something far more powerful. They proved its foolishness through simple acts of kindness. And as I prepare to make my final argument to the council, I know that humanity's greatest achievement isn't their victory over the Meridians, or their rescue of the Proxima colony, or any of their other feats. Their greatest achievement is reminding a jaded galaxy how to care. Your Excellencies, I say, my aged voice carrying across the council chamber, I stand before you one final time. Not to ask for humanity's acceptance, they don't need that, but to warn you of what we'll lose if we reject their leadership. The chamber has changed since my first appearance. Humans now stand along the walls as diplomatic attaches and scientific advisors. Their presence has already altered us in ways few recognize. Look at what we've become. I gesture to the modern council chamber. In the 20 cycles since humanity's emergence, our cooperation has increased threefold. Joint scientific missions have quintupled. Conflict resolution times have decreased by 60%. Why? I pause, letting the statistics sink in. Because humans taught us to be better, not through advanced technology or superior wisdom, but through simple example. The ZXTL representative, the same one who once mocked humanity, interrupts. They still use projectile weapons on their frontier worlds. Their fastest ships can barely achieve 0.3 light speed. There. A warning klaxon cuts through the chamber. Emergency frequencies light up across all comm channels. A Broff colony in the Outer Rim reports critical reactor failure. Millions at risk. And before the council can even begin their deliberations, humans are moving. Their ambassador is already on her comm unit, coordinating with Earth. Their technical advisors are downloading colony schematics. In the space it takes the council to recognize an emergency, humanity is already responding to it. Honored council, the human ambassador, Jessica Sander, turns to address us. Her eyes are bright with purpose. We're dispatching rescue ships now. Any assistance would be welcome, but we understand if you need time to deliberate. She offers a respectful bow and hurries out. The chamber sits in stunned silence. This is what I'm talking about, I say into the quiet. They don't wait for permission. They don't calculate political advantages. They see a need and they fill it. Their primitiveness, as you call it, is their greatest strength. I stride to the center of the chamber, my silver scales catching the light. Do you know what their scientists did when we showed them quantum folding technology? They asked why we were making it so complicated. Their primitive minds found 3 new applications we'd never considered because they weren't bound by centuries of theoretical frameworks. Their chaotic nature begins the Olthari delegate. Is exactly what we need, I counter. They try things we'd never consider. They take risks we'd dismiss as illogical. And yes, sometimes they fail. But they learn from those failures in ways we've forgotten how to do. I activate the chamber's holofield, displaying scenes from the past 20 cycles. Humans defending Tellarite farms from solar storms. Human doctors treating Yith plague victims. Human ships forming honor guards for Olthari funeral processions. They're not perfect, I continue. They argue among themselves. They make mistakes. Their methods sometimes seem crude or inefficient, but they never stop trying to help, to learn, to improve. My next words are interrupted by a transmission from the Broff colony. The human ships arrived first, as expected, but instead of simply evacuating the colonists, they're attempting to stabilize the reactor. The vid feed shows human engineers working alongside Broff technicians, combining human intuition with Broff technology. Watch, I tell the council. Watch how they adapt, how they collaborate, how they inspire others to join them. This is what true leadership looks like. The reactor stabilizes. Cheers erupt from the emergency channels. Human and Broff voices mingled together in joy. Humanity doesn't want to rule the galaxy, I say into the aftermath. They don't want to impose their will or reshape us in their image. They simply want to help. And in doing so, they make us all better. I face the council one last time. The question isn't whether humans are advanced enough to lead. The question is whether we're wise enough to let them show us how to be better than we are. The chamber fills with murmurs as the council members confer. But I already know we've won. The vote is a formality at this point. The humans proved their worth not through my words, but through their actions, just as they always have. When the council offers them leadership of the Galactic Defense Fleet, the human ambassador returns, still dusty from coordinating the colony rescue. She seems embarrassed by the honor. We'll need everyone's help, she says. We're not looking to command, just to coordinate, to help each species contribute what they do best. I smile, remembering a similar conversation on a human medical ship so many cycles ago. They haven't changed, despite all their advancement. They're still the same species that saved my people while asking nothing in return. And that's exactly why they should lead. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I hope you loved it. Please remember to subscribe if you did like it so you can see more videos like this. And please give us a like and a comment too. I'll see you in the next one.